Hi everyone, it's Craig Wilson from Avid here. Let's take a look at some of the new features in MediaCentral that were shown at the IBC trade show in Amsterdam in September of 2024. So I'm in MediaCentral Cloudux. Now MediaCentral Cloudux is a browser-based application. It gives me access to lots of different workflows and lots of different things that I can do with my MediaCentral system, which can be used, of course, for a news solution from Avid or for broadcast production. But we're going to start off by taking a look at the Acquire app. Now remember, in MediaCentral Cloudux, you have all these different apps along the top, and these enable different workflows depending on what your workflow is. So in MediaCentral Acquire, it's an app for doing feed-based ingest. So this could be ingest from, say, a satellite truck, for example, or from the studio, or for some remote location. So in the upcoming release of MediaCentral, which is going to be 2024.10, there's some new things I can do inside MediaCentral Acquire. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and create a new recording. Now, one of the things that you can have access to here is you can have access to different types of forms. So if you want to use different forms, say you have different metadata you want to add in, different columns you want filled in, you can do that. You can just choose what they are. You can also have things like mandatory fields. So I'm just going to add a recording in here, and let's just pop this into 48. And we also now have segmentation. So if I'm doing very long recordings, I can segment them out. So say, for example, I'm recording, a football match or a very long sports event, and I want to break it up into more usable chunks. I can do that with segmentation here in MediaCentral Acquire. So I'm going to save this because the things I want to show you really are some new usability advantages, because here I've got my recording, and you can see here, if I want to move it, I can now just grab it and move it around in the timeline itself. So that's really simple and straightforward to do. I can also right-click here and choose to edit. And of course, by doing this, I could, of course, change the time that I want to have here, but I can now just click and drag it and move it around. I can also extend the recordings as well, make the recordings longer, make the recordings shorter. So just some nice new usability advantages now coming here in MediaCentral Acquire. Let's move over now to the Rundown app. So the Rundown app gives me access to all of my running orders in my MediaCentral newsroom management system. Some of you might know that as iNews, is what it was called before. So a couple of things to show here. And the first one is, you can see here I've selected this story, and that's just the text I can see below. But perhaps if I'm producing the show, I want to see the duration of a number of stories because, perhaps I want to work out the timing information. So you can see here, if I hold down the Shift key and then use the cursor, if I select multiple stories, I get the timing information for how long these stories are altogether. As you see, in this case, it was 1 minute and 44. Now I can do the same thing just by holding down the Shift key and then using the mouse to select a group of stories. That I can do that as well. Little tooltip pops up telling you the information. This is something you've been able to do in the traditional iNews client in the past, but not in the Rundown app. So just a nice thing that's been added there. And then if you look at this in the text here, I'm going to go across to my menu across at the right-hand side here. And what I'm going to do is open up what's called the timing bar. So the timing bar gives me timing information for the total duration of the show. If you had different parts, for example, here, it would show you the segments. And it also gives me things like time to cursor. So I put my cursor in the story, it shows me the time here. If I select a bunch of text, it shows me the block time, and it also shows me the overall time. But there's a new option being added in the latest version of the Rundown app, which is to show the character count. So when I select that, that then shows me the character count. So here you can see the text that I've selected here is 42 characters long. The total story is 710. If I just pop my mouse somewhere, then the time to cursor there is 223 characters. Now this, of course, can be really useful when you are, of course, preparing content for distribution on social media sites. So that's one way of doing it. You can display the character count now here in the Rundown app. Okay, next thing to have a look at is actually to do with editing in MediaCentral Cloudux. So I'm just going to open up my video player here, and I'm going to switch across to my sequence. And if I bring up the timeline, The first thing is, in recent versions of MediaCentral Cloudux, you can, of course, display waveforms here. So here's the waveforms, and you can, of course, choose to hide the clip text. But the new thing that's been added here, if I go in, is I can use a keyboard combination and I can scale the waveforms up and down. So it's Control, Alt, and L lets me scale them. Control, Alt, and K lets me scale them down. You may also have seen that I can do this using this little bar here, where I can choose to scale them up or down as well. So of course in MediaCentral Cloudux you can zoom into the timeline, you can zoom out on the timeline. So here I've zoomed straight in, and then of course I can scale them up as well. So it gives me a finer control really for what I'm doing with my audio editing. So I'm going to zoom back out a little bit, because the other thing you might see here now is I have an effect that's here, and if I just play this, then you'll see what's going to happen.
Making workflows for rundown-based shows.
So you can see here that what's happened is I've added a white flash. And that's because we now have a new option here in MediaCentral Cloudux where I could add dip to color effects. Okay, so I'm going to remove this effect just to show you how I can do it. I'll just remove this effect from the video track. And now when I go in and choose the effect editor here, I get the option of a dissolve, which of course we've always had, or I can choose a dip to color. Now, when I select dip to color, I do have a color palette here, so I can select that, and if I wanted to, I could choose any particular color. I can also set up presets. In this case, I've set up a preset, which of course is it's a white flash. I can also set that as a default, and then I can get the choice of where I want to have this actually running on the edit itself. So let's say I want it centered, and we'll make it 20 frames this time. And that then adds in the effect. So there you can see it's a slightly different icon to the icon we have for a dissolve, but that's another thing we've added here. And of course, when I now transfer this to a playout server, this effect then gets rendered out, and you could then have a flash of white in your edit, or a flash of any color, depending on what you choose in the color palette itself. Now, we've looked a little bit already at the Rundown app in MediaCentral, but I also want to show you something new with the iNews client. Now, if you may be familiar with the iNews client, if not, I'm going to bring it up, and you'll see it actually looks a little bit different. And that's because in the release of MediaCentral coming out later this year, we are going to update and refresh the iNews client, giving it a new light and dark modes, really refreshing what it looks like. All the functionality remains there, that rock solid performance that people are used to, things like keyboard macros, toolbars, all of those great features in the iNews client remain, but it's got a really refreshed look. And of course, in dark mode, as we can see here, it really matches much more closely what we have in the Rundown app. Now, if I go to the Tools menu and I look at options, I have a new option for theme. And you'll see here we now have three themes. One is the dark mode that we're looking at the moment. There's also a light theme, and there is still the original look. So if you still like the original look and you just want to keep it, of course, you can carry on doing that. But we are now adding the new light and dark modes as well to the iNews client. So if you want that rock solid performance, all of the keyboard shortcuts that you're used to, but you want to update the look, go right ahead now, and in the iNews client, you've got the option of doing that. And so that's one of the other things coming with a MediaCentral release coming later in 2024. Okay, let's go back to MediaCentral Cloudux now, because there's a couple of final things I want to show you. One here is up at the right-hand side, you see there's a little chat icon here, which has a beta label beside it. And if I open that up, this is now Teams Chat. So we are integrating Teams Chat in MediaCentral Cloudux, where you can have your Teams Chat directly in here. So this is going to be a beta in the MediaCentral 2024.10 release, but there we have Teams Chat. Now you might be thinking, having looked at all these things, where's the AI stuff? Because AI is the big theme of IBC. Well, of course we have AI, and you might have got a little glimpse of that when you look below the video player here, because we now have a new transcript window. So I'm going to show you the transcript window, but I want to show it for another reason in a second. So first of all, from a transcript, you'll be able to generate transcripts using AI manually or automatically. And the way you can do it automatically is actually enabled by the MediaCentral rules engine. Now, the MediaCentral rules engine is also something that's new in this release, and it's a really big deal. This is going to allow you to automate a whole bunch of workflows in your MediaCentral production management system using apps such as MediaCentral Collaborate, and can also work with automation in your MediaCentral asset management system as well. So the rules engine is really, really cool and really, really powerful. And one of the ways it can be used would be to automatically generate transcripts, okay? But you'll also see in this window here, I have a number of different tabs. You might be familiar with these if you've seen MediaCentral before, but we now have this new option where I can choose to show or hide tabs. So for example, if I don't want to see the file info tab here, for example, I can just turn it off. And this persists between sessions. When I log back in again, it simply won't be there. And also just another nice little usability thing. If I close up the menu, you see here that now I have a little flyaway window where I can actually choose to display one of the tabs that's now hidden. So just like another nice usability thing here in MediaCentral to allow me to do that. But anyway, transcripts. Let's take a little bit of a look at more transcripts. And to do that, I'm just going to quickly flick over to another system. So here in MediaCentral Cloudux, let's take a look at transcription. And transcription from Avid is enabled by Avid Ada. That's a framework that we're building all of our AI solutions and services on that apply across all of the Avid products. So here in MediaCentral Cloudux, I can choose to manually transcribe clips or automatically transcribe them, as I mentioned earlier. And you can see here when I play the clip that the blue line follows the words as the speaker is speaking. Now, I can also use this where if I click on a word, it will take me directly to that time code for where the word is. I also get the option of identifying speakers. It identifies the different speakers that you have. If you have multiple speakers in a clip, I can rename the speakers, and that will then ripple through the rest of the clip. And I can also edit the transcript as well if there's any errors. Now, we're going to support multiple languages with transcription in MediaCentral as well, and this really is the starting point of a whole host of AI services we plan to introduce in MediaCentral in the next little while. So, transcription, brand new in MediaCentral Cloudux. And okay, so that's it. So lots and lots of new things in MediaCentral, from MediaCentral Acquire to the Rundown app to new editing capabilities, to the really powerful rules engine, to AI integration, and of course, there's a whole host of other updates as well around things like security, which is, of course, a really big deal, which we continue to update in every release of MediaCentral as well. So hopefully that's been useful. Those are all the new things that were previewed at IBC and coming soon to MediaCentral.